Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Fulcrum 6.0, XLRI Jamshedpur's Consulting Conclave. I am Rhythm Shah from the PGDM General Management batch at XLRI Jamshedpur. It's a privilege to welcome Mr. Ajit Pai, strategy lead partner at EY, with an accomplished career spanning leadership roles at NITI Aayog and leading global financial institutions. He brings a blend of expertise in public policy, economic strategy, governance, and nation building. Through his extensive experience across both the public and private sector, he has played a key role in shaping strategic and driving large scale transformation. We are delighted to have him with us today to share his insights and experience. Mr. Pai, a very warm welcome to the XLRI Fulcrum podcast. So, before starting, I want to have this question to our audience. Every minute, we are flooded with more information than we could possibly process. But here's the real question. Does having more information help us make better decision, or does it simply make judging what's true even harder? So that's exactly what we are exploring today, and judgment and the age of information overburdens.
So thank you, Rhythm, and thank you, XLRI, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure at the panel discussion this morning. And also, I was quite impressed with the quality of the questions and interactions that we had over here. So it was a learning experience for me as well, and it was a pleasure to engage. To address the question about that you just asked about the breadth of data that's available, the volume of data that's available, whether that's made things more challenging or that's made things easier and better. So I know it sounds almost contradictory, but it's done both.
Okay.
So it's become more difficult in some ways, and it's become easier in some ways. So clearly, more data is a good thing because there is more to look at. The mosaic is better filled, and so the insights that we can get from that are also, the potential of better insights is greater. But greater data, especially when the data quality and the root sort of generation of the data, etc., we're not is suspect. We are not sure what the quality of the data is. We're not sure whether the sources are reliable. Then automatically the challenges are in what's good data, what's bad data, what's reliable data. So it's become both more complex, more challenging, but also easier because if you have greater data and it is reliable data, the analysis can give you better outputs and better outcomes.
Okay. So you did mention it makes easier, but you have earned multiple number one ranking for forecasting accuracy when analysts had access to broadly the same information. So what was your actual filter for separating this signal from convincing a market narrative? So something is there which is you are doing different because the data is there, but it's still not that accurate.
Right. So I think you touched upon two very, very interesting sort of subjects there. One is you talked about the market narrative, and second, you talked about the data.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a difference between the two. And a lot of us focus generally on the data, on the analysis, what is extremely objective. The market narrative is not as objective, it's subjective. And that market narrative also is something that requires a lot of effort to understand. So the first thing I think one must do if one wants to be very good at forecasting, not just the fundamentals of companies, but also stock prices and actual earnings, is to first understand what the market narrative is. So there's no shortcuts. You need to understand what the market believes over there. And then once you understand what the market believes, it's not repeating the market narrative that makes a good analyst. It's finding out identifying what the market is missing. And so it's very difficult to identify what's missing unless you understand what the market thinks. So there is time that you have to spend on understanding where the market is, how to segment the market, what the different segments believe. And then there is your analysis, which looks for, or your insight that looks for where the differences are. Whenever you have something that the market doesn't know, that helps you forecast more accurately than the market.
So, sir, as you mentioned that uh, everyone is taking a shorter path or it's taking a quicker route. So, GPT, Claude are helping us in taking that quicker route. But AI can generate a credible answer to almost any question with seconds. Like I'll just answer, type any prompt, it will give me some answer which I don't know is credible or not credible. So, how should leaders distinguish between information, insight, and judgment? So, there are many answers. Like it will, even for the market insights, it will give me some answers. But how to make it a distinguished factor? Like it's a uh, it's a very good insight or it's a very good information which I should use for my judgment.
So I'll answer that question in two ways. There are certain categories in which me as the evaluator for whatever I'm receiving has enough knowledge and can be able to distinguish between what is reasonable quality and not reasonable quality. As a strategy consultant, however, we are generalists. We often look at output and have to evaluate it on the basis of areas that we don't have the knowledge in. So we're not knowledge based. We're, for strategy, we are more insight analysis based. So automatically over there are filters that would have to be applied. And generally the filter is applied on the source, which is who is the person that is individual or the team that is giving me that output. So over time, you'll develop an opinion on whether that team knows how to provide me the reliable outputs or not, because AI is a tool. So when you look at a tool, it is, as I said in the earlier panel discussion, if it's garbage in, garbage out. So it's not the data matters, which is the quality of data, but much more than the quality of data and quality of analysis is the question that is asked.
Okay.
So the questions, if you ask the right questions, even if it's Claude, even if it's ChatGPT, GPT-4, whatever version you're using, if the quality of the question is right, the quality of the output is right. If the quality of the data is pre-checked by the people, whoever is generating that output, a lot of it is in the questions and then verification post the questions by the people that bring it. So over time, one will be able to distinguish even in areas you're not familiar with, because you'll start knowing which individuals are asking the right questions and which teams, and that output quality will, start improving for, you'll trust some and trust others less.
Very insightful, sir. I'm definitely going to use this during my case competition to judge which answers are correct and which are just misleading. But now shifting to a lighter note, we just want to know that how you began your career in architecture. Like before moving into technology, research, and finance, which part of architectural training most shaped the way you later assessed companies on risk and uncertainty?
So it is quite a leap when you look at architecture and when you look at risk and uncertainty. I think the most significant common thread between those, I also had strategy consulting in between, is one, of course, the general skills. So as an architect, you're a generalist. You do hard math, you do engineering, you do the arts, you do sciences, you do history, you do anthropology. So you do actual construction, you have to manage sites, so you see the real world aspects. You also notice that some buildings will last 1,000 years and some buildings will get finished very quickly. So there's obsolescence. And many buildings, even before they're complete, are obsolete because you're stuck in areas, and things that are changing very fast. So that definitely, those generalist skills, as well as the ability to look into the future. When you're designing something that is going to last for a period of time, starts getting your mind looking at the forecasting aspects. Subsequently, when I did strategy consulting, also generalist skills, but more on the problem solving side from a much broader perspective. So that feeds back both into architecture as well as into markets in the future. And both of these, I think, helped and prepare for what you would look at the markets as. Eventually, it is the perspective and understanding of the way the world is evolving. And when you're doing forecasting, it's fundamentally a way of looking at how new disruptions, innovations, and other demographic trends, all of that are going to impact the future. So how companies will do, how the world will do, how it's going to evolve. So it feeds into each other. They're not, it's not just a direct fit, but it has been very useful, and at least in my career and in my understanding of the way the world works.
So you did mention rapid evolving industry. So you did move from financial markets where feedback is rapid and measurable into the government of India, where outcomes are slower and involve many stakeholders. So what was the biggest assumption you had to unlearn during this process?
So the markets give you feedback immediately, and believe it or not, the government also, the feedback is immediate. In fact, I would point to February 1st of every year, where you have a significant announcement. When that significant announcement happens, even the markets react instantly. So the impact is not necessarily any slower. But the decision-making process is much slower. So I would agree with you. Policy is something that is driven by factors that are over the longer term. And the coming up with policy decisions also, with the many factions, with some people for, some people against, the decision-making is a far more complex process than a corporate decision, which is based on other factors. So from that perspective, yes, things move slower in the government. But because of that slower movement, one of the reasons why I moved from Wall Street to government is try and see whether there's some way that we could help the iron frame in India move faster. So start accelerating the pace of that decision making, because in the end, the Darwinian analogy, it's not the strongest, it's not the fastest, it's not the fittest, but it is the ones that are most adaptable to change. So that is the factor that I believe that it is good that government moves slower, because there's a lot of risk in the private sector. But if it moves too slow, it keeps the country behind. And my sense is that our government, our whole system, can move much faster and more efficiently, and that is the focus. So from that perspective, yes. But the impact is immediate. You improve ease of doing business, things improve immediately. You announce a change in policy, it is almost instant, the change.
So you talked about policy. In this, we are having a macroeconomic subject in which they do focus completely on policy. And you have worked on policy and industry sides of electric mobility at NITI Aayog and later at Ola. So what did each side misunderstood about the other, and what continues to slow India's green transition?
So those are 3-4 very complex questions. One is that I would say that there isn't really a misunderstanding between the government policy and what Ola wants. So I think what was required and what was wanted was the same purpose, which is to accelerate the green transition as quickly as possible. Now, you're asking, why was the green transition going slower than we would have liked? Why does Ola want to accelerate it, government want to accelerate it, and continue to want to accelerate with things going slower? So there are 2 or 3 factors that are responsible for that. And some of them are policy related, which is, there's a complexity in India where some matters are with the central government, some are with the state government. So to get that uniformity, to get standards, to get the economies of scale, all of those were barriers to the proliferation of EVs and to make that green transition happen, especially in mobility. But a very critical factor is that shifting from oil, which of course we import, over 80% of our petroleum from outside, to sort of improve that external dependency, we were trying to accelerate EVs. But based on the extent economics, a lot of the rare earths, the batteries, all of that, a lot of the raw materials are coming, even more, a greater percentage is coming from overseas. So some of that complexity on how do you manage that external dependency in the short run. Our energy transition, even in the generation side, is still happening. So, even thermal power is continuing to grow in India, while, renewables has grown quite a bit. Our electrical network is also getting upgraded. So we are getting more and more ready for the green transition or the EV transition. But there are many factors that have to be sorted out. Ola, of course, made a big move with their lithium ion and there are other batteries that are coming and technologies that are coming and cell technologies that are coming. And others are also making similar moves. The government has done PLIs trying to encourage that. But the raw materials, we need to figure out where and how we can either get it domestically, maybe from our blue economy, from our areas around us, or with relationships with other countries other than our northern neighbor, which right now has the dominant share. So we need to diversify some of that risk.
So my next question would be to connect policy making and AI. So it's a question for every analyst, consultant, and policymaker. Like they have access to similar data and increasingly similar AI tools. So where will the differentiated judgment come from?
So I think I alluded to that a little earlier, which is the data is the same for everybody, but clearly people have different opinions. So judgment is based on the kind of experience a person has outside of just the same data, same exposure, and that experience is dictated by the way a person thinks. So how is that reflected practically? The quality of the questions that you ask. So whether it was pre-AI or post-AI, it's not just the data and the analysis, it's the quality of the question that is asked. Even in Claude or in ChatGPT, the prompts that you give, the questions that you ask will influence the quality of the output significantly. So nothing has changed in that respect. It's not just the data, it's not just analysis, it's not just speeding it up, but the quality of the question that's asked. So that is a big differentiator, and that is a reflection of the judgment of the individual that could have gotten it through asking queries and seeing the responses, or could have gotten it through their understanding of the world around us.
So that is correct. Like one of the professors also mentions that instead of judging us on the answers, he would start judging on the prompt that we have given to Claude, because that is more important in current scenario, like how the prompting you are doing. So that was a good, insightful thing about AI. So I've also seen that you have described AI and design as a AutoCAD on steroids. So that is a very fun word, which I saw, that AutoCAD on steroids. That you are warning that it can encourage intellectual laziness, and you are saying that it is on like a steroid kind of thing. So how can leaders use AI to raise the quality of thinking rather than merely reducing the efforts required?
So that is the billion or trillion dollar question, which is that once you give people tools that are extremely effective, and AI is a very effective tool even for architects to complete designs, finish overall proposals very, very quickly. But it is eventually the quality of that thinking which goes into that building, the envelope, the way it functions, all of that, that is extremely difficult for us to impart. Okay. So how do we, so that's a question we keep asking. We've tried to create 4 centers of excellence in India for urbanization, for example. The government of India announced it 3 years ago, these centers of excellence, one in the north, one in the south, one in the east, one in the west, is to actually improve the quality of discourse. So that the quality of the person that is using the tool will improve, similar to what we are saying about questions, but in terms of design. So yes, AI is, the mistakes will get amplified because they'll happen faster and bigger. So it is a huge challenge. It is a huge challenge.
So talking about that challenge, sir, I'll get my question to that challenge only. That imagine 2 teams produce equally polished recommendation. So one uses AI and finishes within hours, and the other takes longer because it investigates the contextual and the challenges the assumption. But both are being equally polished. So, how should a leader distinguish genuine productivity from the superficial speed? So, it becomes a challenge how to judge both those presentation or both those teams with the recommendation.
So I think it goes back to a topic that we just discussed a short while back, which is to distinguish between two products that are equally slick. If you have domain knowledge, then it is not very difficult. If you don't have domain knowledge, then you'll only build it by your understanding of the individuals behind that. So if the individuals you've had previous experience with and you know what that output is, so then some of those biases, I should call them, would be impacting the way you perceive that work. So generally what will happen, you'll have multiple teams. Each team is going to be good at something or the other. People develop specific skills, different ways of doing things. So there will be a way that you will determine who to use on which sort of project, on which kind of output. And over time, you'll figure out that even though the final output looks very similar, like I'm sure that PowerPoint also as a format, especially when you're working in companies, large branded companies, look very similar in terms of that, but it's eventually the content that will make a difference. And the credibility is that the manager would give to those two teams is based on past experience with those, because eventually you have to delegate, you have to get back over time. That's where the scalability comes in. So it is with experience that you would be able to judge. And you will carry a bias because some areas you won't know enough about. So there's the reputation of the person.
Correct, sir. So the next question is kind of personal, because I always think using AI is reducing my knowledge or is reducing my usage of brain. So young professionally traditionally develop judgments through research, modeling, drafting, and making mistakes. But if AI is increasingly performing the foundational work, how should MBA student like me learn the craft without outsourcing their thinking?
So I think the craft should have been learned well before the MBA. At the MBA level, when you're already have some work experience, you've already finished with developing a view of the world during your undergrad and during your schooling years. You already have levels of skill, levels of awareness, and level of perspective that is largely formed. So at this stage now, my belief is that the skills that you develop, a lot of them are already hardwired post-undergrad, whether you're an engineer, whether you're an architect, whether you're done the humanities, all of that. Now, the other skills, which is in real-world problems, all of that need application. But a large part of what you do in those other areas are mechanical skills. Now, if these mechanical skills are accelerated, if they're just repetitive, all of that, by a new tool, let's call it AI, and the bulk of the problem when you're setting up PowerPoint, setting up slides, copying and pasting, if all of that is done in an automated fashion, then your time will go to the value add about the narrative, about changing what's important and doing that. So it can be a very effective tool for someone that already has the skills. My advice would be to have developed those skills before the MBA, rather than try and develop those skills at the MBA, and use the MBA for leveraging the relationships, the environment, all of that to actually do the value add to what AI can help you with.
So, so on the topic of MBA only education, so for the MBA education itself, we are seeing that a 1-year MBA program have been gaining ground in India, while they have long been present in the markets like US. And whole day you have interacted with couple of the cohorts of our batch. So what are your thoughts, and do you have any expectation from the students, and what they should pre-learn before completing the MBA?
So the single biggest value I find in the MBA is generally the classmates that you would have with you that are in a similar place in life. So it is generally a reprioritization. When you go to an engineering school, some people will end up as engineers, some people will end up as in policy, with some people as bureaucrats, some people as dhanda, back to the business. But when people are going back to a business school, there's the intention of being a professional in the corporate world, right? Whether it's consulting, whether it's banking, whether it's a multinational corporation, whether it's industry, manufacturing or services. So there is, you will find like-minded people and develop a network that is outside of the network that you had in your college and your previous employer. So it's broadening the network for someone that has decided that the professional world is one, corporate world is one that they want to re-engage in. So I think that is the single biggest value of a program, which is a resident program. You also have these part-time programs where you miss out on that aspect because you're not with people in that particular place. Between the 1-year program and the 2-year program, in my mind, I'm not sure how intense the 1-year program is, but in the end, what is the optimal length of relationship with these people, whether the right number is 1 year or 2 years, I'm not sure. I went to a 2-year program and I enjoyed every single moment of it. But when I look back, would 1 year have been enough? Maybe. I don't know. So it all, I think, depends on what that optimal number is. But a resident program for 1 year, I think more than the academic, which gives you that, is exposing you, allowing you a pivot in your life professionally, and allowing you to expose yourself. But most important is the relationship you build no matter what you choose, of like-minded people that are broadly headed in a similar direction. And it's a different pool from who you grew up with, who you went to college with. There might be some overlap, but it's not a full overlap.
Correct. So we did very serious talk. So now we are changing our segment to a rapid fire thing. So I've grown up watching this Karan Johar podcast. So I had always been in mind to have a rapid fire question when I'll be doing a podcast. So I'll start with the rapid fire questions. So first is chai or filter coffee during a long consulting pitch?
Filter coffee.
Filter coffee. So early morning thinking or late night?
Early
thinking?
morning.
So early morning is 5 a.m., 4 a.m. What is early morning?
6 a.m.
6 a.m. Okay. Wall Street or government, which had tougher critics?
Government.
Okay, I was not expecting this. One city you would happily live in for a year?
New York City.
New York City. Okay. Complete the sentence with good judgment begins with?
Pause.
Okay. So yeah, I'm done with my rapid fire questions. So it was very insightful, and thank you for your valuable time that you have given to us and to the whole cohort. On behalf of the entire XLRI Jamshedpur PGDM GM batch, thank you for being part of Fulcrum 6.0. So yeah, this is Rhythm Shah signing off.
Thank you, Rhythm. Thank you, XLRI. It's been a delight.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.